Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another night of racing action here on the National Race Network. A little bit of technical difficulties getting us on the air just a few moments late. Currently, Brian Labarge is your race leader, followed closely behind by Vic Aldrich and Nagisa Yoshikawa. Currently, James Watson is your fastest lap time with a 25.449. James Watson, driver of the 39 car, is currently sitting way back in the 13th position, trying to make his way through some traffic, having to try and get by Stephen C. Thompson and Matthew Johnson, and both those cars go flying into the outside wall. Big contact right there, and Watson narrowly escapes it. See if we can get a replay of the action here with Stephen C. Thompson. Go back here. Looks like the number 404 car just kind of slides up the track into the outside wall, and unfortunately the driver of the 24 car, Stephen C. Thompson, taken away in the contact. As Stephen C. Thompson now limping that car back into the pit lane. Heavy damage on that machine, missing the rear wing. I believe his night is going to be over. So currently 45 minutes remaining, only missed about 5 minutes of the action here. Again, want to give a huge thank you to everyone for tuning in, as always, on these Tuesday Night Thunder broadcasts. For the end of the 2024 season, this is the only series that we are covering here on the National Race Network. So getting word from Race Control that the cars involved in that incident was the number 24 machine and the number 404 machine. Matthew Johnson driving that 404 car, Stephen Thompson driving the number 24 machine. Both of those cars have a meatball flag, so that means the car is too damaged to continue on here in tonight's race. So that is going to be the end of the night for both of those vehicles. Also off the track is the 777 of Christopher Kresge. He is pretty much the head honcho of the RIL series. Right now they're running a Roval series on Friday nights, but he comes along and drives these little machines with us. He's more of an IndyCar guy, but this is on the road to Indy, and these cars are always so much fun to watch. He's one of the fastest in these cars, so unfortunate to see him out of the race so early. Same thing with Peter Donchak. Looks like he is off the racing surface as well. Murray Damon in the number 60. Cole Trexler also off the racetrack. Getting word now from Race Control that the 404 retired out of the session. Pace car pulling in now. It's going to be all Brian Labarge as he goes ahead and tries to take the green flag into the restart box. Away he goes, and a fantastic start there for Brian Labarge, followed closely by Vic Aldrich. Currently having the battle with Nagisa Yoshikawa for that second position. We'll drop back and check along with their battle. The old school Phoenix was a much, much better open wheel track. Without that huge dogleg cut through that NASCAR now has running at the circuit, this track was a pure old school. It used to be a fairgrounds track way back in the 60s and really built up for the USAC cars. And these cars do run under USAC sanctioning and basically an evolution of the old school midget cars. Great side-by-side action between Vic Aldrich and Nagisa Yoshikawa. Nagisa Yoshikawa running a fairly successful karting program in rear-world racing out of the Chicagoland area. So not only does he kick some butt here on the sim, he does it in the rear world as well. Another one of those Team Watson racing cars in the front. That is going to be Victor Pfluger in the number 80 machine. Jason Miller trying to get some moves done on the high side. Has to step up, get out of the throttle, keep it off of the wall. And he's actually going to lose time now to Wes Shire trying to join this fight. All of these cars, some of them getting into the grass, some of them bouncing off that outside wall. This was a very, very narrow circuit here at Phoenix before NASCAR got around and widened it out. Take a look back now at the car of Wes Shire. Wes Shire has the best seat in the house to this fight. You can see him stepping out a little bit to the high side to get out of the draft. As soon as the 3-car of Jason Miller slides in front of him, he starts to bring the car back down low, getting some air on that front nose, helping him get through the corner. Wes's setups tend to burn the right rear, but if you're sitting in someone's draft for a really, really long time, it'll burn the right front off, and this thing absolutely will not turn on later on in this race. As we've seen so far in the TNT series this season, probably going to expect pit stops. Pit windows going to open up around 30 minutes to go and stay open to around 20 minutes to go, just depending on where the cautions fly. If you can make it to that 25-minute mark without pitting, that would effectively make it a one-stop race, provided we get a caution later on in the event. Green flag pit stops are not uncommon here in the TNT series, but typically we get an early race caution, as we just saw a couple minutes ago. Getting word from Race Control M. McCullen that the 24 car of Stephen Thompson has retired out of this event as well, so no point continuing on with all of the damage that was on that racing machine. Riding along now with Brian Labarge. Brian Labarge taking a huge lead away from this race. You can't even see the second place car, the 98 of Vic Aldrich, behind him. Gap currently stands at about 1.25 seconds, but he's trying to work that gap up to 1.5 seconds. There you see Vic Aldrich entering frame, and there's a side-by-side battle behind Vic Aldrich between Nagisa Yoshikawa and Christopher Hill now, making his way, trying to break into the podium in this 101 numbered machine. Robert Drew checking in the comments. Yeah, man, it's been a while since we've seen you around. Haven't got word yet on if Christopher Graham will be joining us here in the booth. Usually he takes over the lead on these shows, and I just sit back and kind of enjoy the action. Currently out at a hockey game. Last word I heard, he was dealing with some overtime happening in the game, as we're under caution once again. Getting word that Wes Shire is driving slowly. See if we can see what happened to him. Yeah, and it's going to be the 256 of Simon Fell getting into the back of Wes Shire, noses it into the wall. And unfortunately, I think I see some front-end suspension damage on that car. If he got away square and only took the nose off it, he might be okay, but going to be tough to tell. See if we can get an onboard look from the inside of Wes Shire's car. Just absolutely nothing he could do there. I mean, just you're hanging on and along for the ride, and you can see it right there, the right front damage. Now, the car did snap back, so possibly some netcode issues, some internet issues, causing the simulation to briefly think that something's wrong with that right front tire, so he might be okay here if he's able to get that damage repaired. As he does make his way down into the pit lane now. See if we can't get a word with the driver of the 16 of Wes Shire. We'll wait a minute for him to pull into his pit stall and start getting repair work done on that car. Don't want to distract him as he's trying to pull into the box, especially with a driver like James Watson who is inside. Definitely don't want to make contact with your points champion from last season. Wes Shire's in the box. Let's see if we can sneak away and grab a word with him. Wes, a little bit of tough luck there. Getting hit from behind by Simon Fell. Looks like you hit the wall pretty square, though. Do you think that car is going to be okay with that new nose cone on it?
It will be in about 17 minutes, according to iRacing.
Oh, man. So you
did
end up hitting the right front there. And
Yep. Yeah, that'll be new toe link and yeah.
Now, you are running for points this season. Do you plan on making your way back out onto the racetrack 17 minutes from now? Possibly some attrition later on in this race, and gonna try and claw back some positions, or calling it a night?
Nah, we're gonna head back out. Let's see if we can get a few more points, but yeah, is what it is. Unlucky.
Well, definitely not the result you wanted here tonight, but there's still plenty of racing left this season. There are drop weeks, so we wish you the best of luck. I'll drop you down with all your comrades.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So that was the driver of that number 6 machine, Wes Shire, a multiple-time champion here in the TNT Shock Series. Unfortunately, not going to be tonight's race winner, but definitely look forward to seeing him back in victory lane here in the future. Vic Aldridge currently going to be your race leader. Lights look like they are out on the pace car, so they should be going green flag this time by. Pace car pulls in. It's going to be all the 98 on the start, and we'll give the fans the first lap of this stint of green flag racing. So Jason Miller making an attack to the high side. Briefly, we're watching along with the battle of Nagisa Yoshikawa and Brian Labarge, but we are having a challenge for the lead here, going around the high side, taking the long way around into the dogleg now, still side by side, going to make their way into what is now NASCAR turns 1 and 2. But in this old school version of Phoenix, this was turns 3 and 4, and back down the front stretch they go. You have a new race leader. It's going to be the number 3 machine of Jason Miller, followed behind by Vic Aldrich, currently having the battle with Nick Camargo. Brian Labarge still on the attack of Nagisa Yoshikawa. Manages to get by that purple Team Watson racing machine, but now he's got to pass the boss man himself, James Watson, in that number 39 car, as Nagisa makes another attack in the draft. Not going to be able to make anything happen of it, though, as they make their way into turn number 1. Turn number 2 here at Phoenix does tighten, and we have carnage behind them in the back. Huge contact there. See if we can get a replay of that. Looks like that might have been the number 80 machine and the number 17 machine, or number 7 machine. See if we can pin the camera up close on the number 7 car of Jesse Francisco, as that was the 80 of Victor Pfluger right in front of him, that Team Watson Racing car. Both those cars sporting Team Watson Racing setup colors on them. Going in the turn number 1, I was just talking about how turn number 2 tightens, and right there it does. Both those cars push up into the outside wall. Huge flips there for the number 7 of Jesse Francisco. That car on the inside just unfortunately didn't back out of the throttle enough and got into the side of Victor Pfluger. So that's 2 Team Watson Racing machines out of this event. But not the end of the world there for the Team Watson Racing crew. as they still have, I believe, 19 cars on this grid of 20 or so. So as we find our race leader, Vic Aldrich. So a little over half an hour of racing left to go in this feature event for the TNT Shock Series here at Phoenix International Raceway. Currently, your race leader is Vic Aldrich, followed behind by the Team Watson Race Setups machine of Nick Camargo. Behind them is the RIL-sponsored car of Christopher Kresge, Mr. RIL himself. Fourth position currently is going to be head honcho of Team Watson Racing Setups. That's going to be James Watson, followed behind by the NASA colors of Brian Labarge. Sixth position is going to go to Nagisa Yoshikawa in the Tina Miura scheme. That, I believe, is my favorite of the Team Watson race schemes. I am a sucker for purple on a race car. Followed behind by another purple race car, it's going to be JJ Wang in the number 61 machine. Mike Long going to be right behind in the number 21 car. See some Yokohama colors on that machine. Jason Paydu in the Napa Auto Parts Alexander Rossi inspired number 28 machine, and 10th position is going to be Simon Fell, who was one of the cars involved in the previous caution involving West Shire. So lights are out on the pace car, going to be green flag this time by. Emma Cullen yelling at me in the broadcast text chat here. Emma Cullen is our race control, letting me know that is 1 to green and I need to stop rambling and start getting ready to go back to green flag racing here for the TNT Shock Series. So pace car is in. Once again, going to be Vic Aldrich on the top spot as we get ready to go back green. Crosses the stripe in the top spot. Nick Camargo already 0.4 of a second behind. Whole field's going to be single file as they make their way through the dogleg. As Nick Camargo is trying his best to catch up to Vic Aldrich, but not really clawing much time away. Gap still standing at about 0.3 of a second. Let's go right along with that number 59 machine of the Brazilian Nick Camargo as he chases down the number 98 car of Victor Aldrich. I'm not entirely certain, but I believe this is the home track for Vic Aldrich. Being from the southwest area of the United States. You'll notice shifting going on here at Phoenix in the TNT Shock Series with these Indy Pro 2000 race cars. Nick Camargo dropping down the 5th gear, makes his way down the straightaway right about at the start-finish line, grabs 6 before he has to lift back out of the throttle and makes it back down to the 5th gear. Possibly once the tires start wearing out even more, I've dropped down the 4th gear out of turn number 2. It gets that tight. Shifting not something that's usually common on oval racing. Even the IndyCar guys typically stay 5th gear most of the time, 6th gear if you're saving fuel or if you have extra draft to make a pass. Especially the NASCAR guys now with the 5-speed, they're shifting a little more, but in the past there was never any shifting on a oval. Kind of just leave it in 4th gear and park your foot on the throttle. See just how spread out the field is. Chris Kresge trying to make his way now around J.J. Wang. As Kresge now falls back, Mike Long trying to get the attack on Chris Kresge, but not able to make anything of it. Brian Labarge, your NASA car, currently in the 4th position, setting your fastest lap of the race. He's doing his best to try and chase down current points champion James Watson. So I see a little bit of action going on behind Chris Kresge. That's going to be between Simon Fell now and Mike Long. Nick Camargo now goes fastest lap, trying to chase down Vic Aldrich, but that gap has increased to just over 3/4 of a second. Not sure what is going on with the machine of Mike Long. Possibly burnt the tires completely off that thing, but he is just dropping like a rock. Not able to keep that car on the low line. Going to lose 3 positions there through turns 3 and 4. Dave Sparks makes an attack to the inside now of the 21 machine of Mike Long. Not going to get it done through turns 1 and 2, but possibly into turn 3 as they exit dogleg. He is clear, and now Murray Duncan goes to the inside, and he's going to be chased by Christopher Hill in the 101. Almost contact between those two cars. These drivers are going to try and go 3 wide through the dogleg, barely making out of it alive. Now it's going to be Mike Long and Justin Elliott, and one of my favorite paint schemes here on the service. I can't comment too much more about it, but the number 926 does get by cleanly, and so does the 86 machine of Drew Bernardi. So Mike Long very quickly losing over 10 positions in the span of just a few laps. Looking further up towards the field, looks like Christopher Kresge is trying to make his way through this dogfight. He's got Cole Trexler in the 45 behind him, as well as Jason Paydu in that Alexander Rossi-inspired number 28 machine. Cole Trexler, sponsored by Trexler's Barbecue. I believe that paint scheme is inspired by one, if I remember right, either his grandfather or some other older family member ran the Indy 500 with a very similar painted car. So very, very cool family history and IndyCar history behind that paint scheme. But right now, Christopher Kresge battling side by side with the paint scheme inspired by 100th Indy 500 winner Alexander Rossi. In an interview last year, Alexander Rossi was asked what memory of his IndyCar career he wanted to be most remembered for, and of course he said winning the 100th Indy 500 back in 2016, but of course everyone knows he is going to be remembered for failing to do donuts at the Indianapolis Road Course. So, the wonderful storied racing history of Alexander Rossi. He's still driving cars, but not winning so much anymore and not failing at doing donuts much anymore. We look a little further back in the field as there's some action between Jason Miller and Murray Duncan. Getting word now from Race Control M. McCullen. She pays attention to how much I don't pay attention to IndyCar racing, saying that the half donut was at Mid-Ohio, the only IndyCar track I regularly go to. So I'm glad I have that in my memory, because I sure as heck don't remember it. So we look along with Nagisa Yoshikawa, currently in the 6th position, trying to get by J.J. Wang in the 5th position. Those two purple-powered race cars. Currently a gap of half a second separating them. Brian Labarge is closing in on James Watson. That gap down to 0.3 of a second. As it looks like Vic Aldrich is pitting out of the lead. So your race leader makes the first pit stop, and that usually means the pit window is about open. We can expect most, if not all, of the rest of the field to come down pit lane within the next couple laps. I believe this might be just a touch too early to make it to the finish, so I would expect at the 20-minute or so mark, we're going to see most of the field come down pit lane. Vic Aldrich getting the lead by not pitting under those cautions. They're definitely needing to get fuel. Here we see Nick Camargo coming into the pit, so current race leader is going to be James Watson. We'll have to wait and see when he decides to come down pit lane. Brian Labarge currently in the second position. Brian Labarge does have the option to undercut James Watson and come down pit lane a lap or so early. Currently, multiple drivers trapped at least one lap down. Nick Camargo is one lap down. Vic Aldrich currently a lap down. So if the caution were to come out, Nick Camargo would get his lap back. But if any of these cars in the lead lap stayed out, Vic Aldrich would be trapped one lap down. Getting word now that Wes Shire, the driver of the 16 car, has cleared his meatball flag, which means most but not all of the damage on that car has been fixed. There is still some optional repair that he can take and get that car in a little bit better shape. Now, the nice thing about these cars is they are pretty modular. As long as you didn't damage the tub, everything else can be swapped out and the car will drive more or less the same. But if there's any other damage that couldn't be repaired, and not all damage can be repaired on pit road, that car is going to drive really wonky, and that could be a ticking time bomb we see out there on the racetrack. James Watson and Brian Labarge still your race leaders with just over 20 minutes left to go in this feature event for the TNT Shock Series. JJ Wang still in the third position. JJ Wang currently second and a half behind Brian Labarge. Half sec behind him is still Nagisa Yoshikawa in the number 26 machine in the fifth position, and Simon Fell makes his way up to the fifth spot. Lots of cars separating him from Nagisa Yoshikawa, though, including the two cars that were in the race lead before of Nick Camargo and Vic Aldrich. Those pair currently in the 18th and 19th positions. So as we look back to the fight for the top spot, James Watson driving a very consistent, very conservative race. Brian Labarge, another one of our conservative drivers, so might see a very polite battle for the lead here. Getting word that the 16 car of Wes Shire is coming back out onto the racetrack, kind of putting his way around, trying to make up some spots. He only has to go 4 laps to pass the number 7 of Jesse Francisco and the number 80 of Victor Pfluger. So, not sure if we have a minimum race pace rule here in the TNT Shock Series, but I'm not sure that number 16 car is making it. Now, the good news for Wes Shire is he only has to make it 3 more laps to gain 2 positions, but that might be all that he's gaining, as Steve Costley is the next car up in the 20th position, only 9 laps down, where Wes Shire is currently 33 laps down, and Pfluger and Francisco are 30 laps down. So, realistically, only going to be gaining 3 positions here, but we move back to the fight for the top spot. Brian Labarge still about a tenth of a second behind James Watson, just sitting there waiting for that door to open itself so he can pounce and make a move. Brian Labarge is not one to force the door open, especially still with 18 minutes left to go. We get down to 5 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go, I definitely expect a huge move out of Brian Labarge, but no reason to put himself or any of the other cars at risk with still a third of the race left. JJ Wang, however, very aggressive, trying to take the dive in the turn 1 on the inside of Brian Labarge. Thinks better of it, though, and just sits back. Same thing, sitting about a tenth of a second behind Brian Labarge, just waiting for him to leave the door open, like he does here going in the turn number 3. JJ Wang going the back out of it, though, and not trying to get to the inside of Labarge, at least at the mid-quarter. Now he's going to be right on the rear gearbox coming down the front straightaway. What kind of dive is he going to make in the turn number 1? Doesn't decide to go for any, especially with that tightening turn number 2. It's very easy to slide up into the car on the high side. Nagisa Yoshikawa also joining this fight, so this one makes me believe that James Watson is not going to his fastest race pace that he possibly can. Last lap for Watson was a 25.608. His best lap was a 25.377. So 0.3 of a second off the pace here as the leader, but when no one wants to pass you, you don't have to go much faster than you really have to. Getting word of a meatball flag for the 3 car of Jason Miller. That car leaving the pit lane. And I don't see any significant damage on that number 3 machine, but possibly just a burnt off right front tire then. Make our way back to the top of the field. Making their way through some lap traffic now. All cars forced to go high. 15 minutes remain in the TNT Shock Series event at the Phoenix International Raceway. Fairly certain these top 2 cars of James Watson and Brian Labarge are going to have to come into the pit lane at some point. Actually, all this top 5, they have not pit in 45 laps. So not sure how many laps can be made on a stint, but I don't think any of these cars can make it to the checkered flag. As there it is, your race leaders are making their way into the pit lane. They're going to stop a lap earlier than JJ Wang and Nagisa Yoshikawa, as I expect those pair to make their way into the pits the next lap. So we'll follow along now with the number 61 machine of JJ Wang and the other purple-powered car of Nagisa Yoshikawa right behind him. These cars have gone 46 laps on this stint. Will either of them come into the pits this time? No, they don't. They stay out for yet another revolution around the Phoenix International Raceway. As here it is, JJ Wang going to make his way into the pits now, and that makes Nagisa Yoshikawa your race leader. Staying out for another cycle around the circuit. Simon Fell, another driver on this same pit strategy as Nagisa Yoshikawa. How long can these cars stay out before they wear down the tires completely and need to stop? Seeing that we've got a couple meatball flags, 4 cars with tires that are just 2 shot. So not so much a fuel race here tonight, but definitely a tire race. Getting word for a huge impact between car number 45 and car number 926. Don't have a replay of that one to show you. Neither car stopped on the circuit. Here we go. The number 45 machine of Cole Trexler is still making his way around the circuit. And doesn't look like there's any damage on that car. Let's see if we take a look at the number 926. That car looks A-okay too. So both cars still continue. No caution comes out. As Nagisa Yoshikawa now makes his way down the pit lane, and so does Simon Fell. This is going to move Christopher Hill up to the top spot, and that number 101 machine going to lead his first laps of the race. Cole Trexler currently a second and a half behind. 50 laps on this stint going to finally come down into the pit lane. Peter Donchak moves his way up into the second position. Currently 42 laps on those tires. Christopher Hill 43 laps on his. Getting word of a black flag for the number 256 machine of Simon Fell. Likely for speeding on the pit lane on pit exit. So hitting the button too quickly to release the pit speed limiter and going to end up with a 30-second hold in the pit lane. So it's going to put an end to Simon Fell's hopes of finishing on the lead lap here and possibly winning tonight's race. Christopher Hill now on his 44-lap stint going to come to an end, going to bring it down pit lane after leading just a couple laps. Peter Donchak stays out on the racetrack, 44 laps on his tires this time by. Liam Melsa, a new name here to the TNT Shock Series. Currently going to be in the second position after passing Chris Hill in the pits. 46 laps on his tires, so he is on the longest stint out of any car on the racing surface right now. We could expect him to make his way down into the pit lane here shortly. This time, there he comes, takes the exit off of turn number 3, and it's going to take the slow crawl down into the pit lane. Looks like Chris Kresge battling with the number 16 car of West Shire. West Shire currently in the 21st position. Too far behind to pass Stephen Costley, so West could realistically get off of the racing surface and finish in the exact same spot. He's just out there making laps, getting good experience. Get word of a black flag now for the number 58 car of Liam Melsa. That is going to be for speeding entering the pit, so he's going to serve his penalty here in the box. So gets up to the second position before having to pull off. Current car on the longest stint is going to be Peter Donchak with 46 laps on his tires. Nick Camargo and Vic Aldrich currently second and third, so they are still the effective leaders of this race. As Peter Donchak going to have to come down the pit lane one last time here in the last 10 minutes of this race. And there he comes, Peter Donchak making his way into the pit lane. Gap currently 12 seconds between Peter Donchak and Nick Camargo. Issues for Nick Camargo, though. Looks like just some internet troubles for him as he is back up into the second spot. Peter Donchak, current race leader, making his way into the box now. 2 seconds separates him from Camargo. Camargo comes across line, and Nick Camargo is going to return to the race lead here in the TNT Shock Series. Next race for the TNT Shock Series is going to be next Tuesday, October 29th, where these guys take on right turns for the one and only time this season at the Watkins Glen International Road Course. They're going to run the Cup Classic Circuit. So if you're unfamiliar with the layouts of Watkins Glen, the Cup Classic Circuit is the NASCAR circuit, so they will not be running the boot. And they will not be running that bus stop chicane either. It is a 6 or 7 turn road course. Very, very simple track, very similar to the track that the Formula One cars used to run way back in the 60s. So Going to be fun to see these machines going there. If you want a road course that drives like an oval, that Watkins Glen Cup Classic layout might be one of the closest things. Nick Camargo currently a second and a half ahead of Victor Aldrich. Followed behind by James Watson, rounding out your podium here tonight so far. Still 7 minutes remaining in this feature event. Six and a half minutes remain as Simon Fell is currently fighting to get back being just one lap down. Now, inside of 5 minutes, we go to the quick yellow, so there will be no lucky dog or any of that magic. So Simon Fell, unfortunately, not going to finish on the lead lap. Currently 14 cars on the lead lap, last of them being Dave Sparks in the 14th position. JJ Wang looks like he has an issue, as my timing and scoring box going crazy dropped him back down to 13th position briefly before bringing him back up to the top spot. So, timing and scoring, not sure what is going on there. We'll ignore that as we have our race leaders to watch. Vic Aldrich, you can see him at the back of the shot there. We'll point the camera at him real quick. Going through the dog leg right now, a second and a half behind Nick Camargo without a lucky caution or a lucky break through lap traffic. It's going to be a tough one for him to try and catch up to Nick Camargo and then get by him. James Watson, you see him at the exit of the shot there. Currently in the third spot, not a car in sight behind him. Brian Labarde's about 2 seconds behind James Watson. You can see him just exiting turn number 2 there as this field makes their way through the dog leg. Currently 91 laps complete. As it looks like JJ Wang setting your new fastest lap at a 25:298 for that number 61 machine. So setting some blisteringly fast laps, he tries to break back into the top 5. But with only 4.5 minutes remaining, I'm not sure it's going to be enough to get him back onto the podium where he was earlier in this event. Gap for your race lead currently up to 2 seconds as James Watson has successfully caught Vic Aldrich. Gap now down to just under half a second, well within drafting range here at Phoenix International Raceway. The big question for Watson is he going to be able to pass Vic Aldrich and take that second spot on the podium? Watson out here trying to defend his title from last season. So every single point counts, and there's a huge number of points on offer between second position and third position. First position offers 45 points, where second offers 38 and third offers 33. You have to get all the way back to the 7th position at 21 points before the point system starts to make somewhat logical sense, with 8th being 20 points, so only one less point between those two positions. Bonus points are awarded in the TNT Shock Series for pole position, most laps led, and the fastest lap. So fastest lap currently would go to your 5th place driver, JJ Wang. I've asked Wes for comment multiple times on the absurdity of the point system. It doesn't follow any linear or exponential format, but it was designed up by the Real World USAC Indy Pro 2000 series. So someone else that gets paid a lot more money than we do came up with that point system. And we're not really sure what they were thinking, but they were thinking something. Nick Camargo looks like he's making his way into the pit lane. 43 laps on these set of tires, so almost was enough to make it to the end of this race with 2.5 minutes left remaining, but it's not going to be enough. That puts James Watson and Brian Labarge on the top 2 spots, and JJ Wang, who I was just saying I'm not sure he was going to break back into the top 3, currently battling side by side with Brian Labarge, almost makes contact there at a turn number 4. Those pair battling for the second position. Nagisa Yoshikawa trying to break his way into a podium spot now on the inside of his other purple friend, JJ Wang. Those 2 cars nearly making contact once again out of turn number 2 in that mid-corner, right where it tightens. It is so difficult to go through there side by side. James Watson cutting his way through some lap traffic, but we're going to keep our eye on this battle for second, third, and fourth. JJ Wang nosing out in front of Brian Labarge. Not quite clear though, and Labarge with the run on the high side. Going to stay neck and neck as they make their way in the turn number 3. Brian Labarge not giving JJ Wang a whole ton of room there, giving him the squeeze. Going to kill his momentum out of the exit of turn number 4. Those pair are going to be side by side as they cross the line. Gap that time was 7/1000ths of a second. As this time takes the slider in the turn number 1, gets it done by the time he makes it out of turn number 2, so clears Brian Labarge. Brian Labarge now on the attack, coming back just over a minute left to go here in the TNT Shock Series. Nagisa Yoshikawa now trying to make an attack on Brian Labarge for the final spot on the podium. Trying to get 2 cars in the top 3 for Team Watson Racing setups. Brian Labarge with a bit of a chop off the nose there of Nagisa Yoshikawa. No harm, no foul though, as these cars don't make contact. Very tough racing here in the TNT Shock Series, especially on the ovals with how nimble these cars are. You can get away with a lot of crazy moves like that. "30 seconds left to go, so we're expecting to see the white flag here for James Watson. As Nagisa Yoshikawa trying to get it done here in turns 3 and 4. We'll pin the camera back to James Watson. Going to come across the line for the white flag. This should be one more lap to go here for the TNT Shock Series. Brian Labarge and Yoshikawa still battling for it. Yoshikawa safely has the spot now. JJ Wang just a little bit ahead, all by himself in second. White flag is officially out though. Field making their way in the turn number 4. James Watson just a straightaway left to go, and Watson is going to win here in the TNT Shock Series at Phoenix International Raceway. JJ Wang coming across the line in second, Nagisa Yoshikawa third, Brian Labarge fourth, Jason Miller fifth, Padu sixth, Cole Trexler coming across the line in seventh, Peter Donchak eighth, Murray Damon come across the line in ninth, and Christopher Hill in the pit box, unofficially going to finish in the 10th position. Not sure if he got that by taking the tow there to the pit box, or we're going to see how timing and scoring decides to deal with that after the race ends. James Watson now parking it up on the start-finish line, waiting for the whole field to finish their race before he does some victory lane donuts. So James Watson going to be your race winner. JJ Wang second, Yoshikawa third, Labarge fourth, Trexler fifth, Miller sixth, Jason Padu seventh, Peter Donchak eighth, Murray Damon ninth, and Nick Camargo rounding out your top 10. So can't ever trust the timing and scoring until we get the official results page. Christopher Kresge finishes in the 11th position, Dave Sparks 12th, Drew Bernardi 13th, Vic Aldrich 14th, Mike Long 15th, Simon Fell 16th. So your last car, 1 lap down. First car, 2 laps down, be Justin Elliott, finishing 17th, Liam Melsa 18th, Chris Hill 19th, and Steve Costley 20th. Wes Shire claws back to finish in the 21st position, Jesse G. Francisco 22nd, Victor Fluger 23rd, and the 2 cars out in the first incident that we saw on camera here finishing 24th and 25th. So let's see if we can't grab a quick word with some of our top 3 drivers here. Why don't we start it off with Nagisa Yoshikawa, if I can find him. So, first driver up for an interview is going to be the 26 machine of Nagisa Yoshikawa. Nagisa, what a fantastic run for you here tonight. Really had to earn the spot on the podium as Brian Labarge wasn't giving you an easy fight, but finally you were able to get by and start to drive away from him just a little bit.
Yeah, it was a really fun battle at the end. I knew, my car wasn't the best out of everybody, but, we stayed up there all night. Kind of, fought when we needed to and ran with people when we needed to, and it was satisfying to get that, podium on it was kind of unexpected on the last couple laps, but it was a great battle and just glad to bring home some points as well.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Nick Camargo or any of those other guys to need another pit stop, and then all of a sudden they just dove into the pits, and it kind of opened the floodgates for you guys at the front to start battling for an actual top position in this race.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely. I was pretty surprised when I saw him pull in, and then I'm like, before that, I was like, all right, I'll just, I'll finish 6th or 7th at the worst. I got my point for leading a lap, and I'm like, all right. Well, I know I was outscoring Christopher as well because I'm kind of close to him in the points, so I was like, all right, I'm fine with that. And it was kind of a, pleasant surprise when everybody pulled in, and now we're fighting for a podium. So that was nice.
Hell yeah. Well, before we let you go, why don't we get all your sponsor plugs and thank yous in?
Yeah, of course, Team Watson Racing and Team Watson Racing setups, the best TM18 setups out there. And I always say it, but shout out to all of the drivers tonight. It was a great show and great, very respectful racing. And then you guys as well for putting it out there, and the league for hosting everything.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for coming out. Thanks for giving us something to talk about. And hopefully we're talking to you again soon next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Up next is going to be JJ Wang, finishing in the 2nd position here tonight in the number 61 machine. JJ had a hard-fought battle all night. It seemed like you and Nagisa just couldn't get away from each other, but you definitely came out on top versus Nagisa. Not quite able to chase down James Watson, but 2nd is still a very respectable position for you here tonight.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was, honestly, coming into here, I wasn't sure what kind of car I had, but, James gave me some setup tips. The PM18 master that he is. It's always great to just have, like, just such a great talent in these cars as a teammate. You can learn so much from. And, gradually during the runs, the car was just good. Like, I saw people push up, and I could kind of put the car anywhere I wanted. And during that middle stint, I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, we might actually have something in this Conspit 61. So yeah, really pleased with how that shook out. I really have to give all of my thanks to James. It's all down to him, man. Like this, he really knows how to set this car up. He really knows how to just put this car together on these ovals, and it just performed beautifully today. I couldn't have asked for a better car. And yeah, that final stop, I was just really shy on entry because the the fuel light overrode the pit limiter, so I wasn't really sure if I had the limiter on or not, and I think that probably costs us a chance, but realistically, James is probably the car to beat today. And
yeah, James Watson, one of the veterans of the TNT series, running it, I believe, every season since the start, so definitely has these cars figured out, was last season's point champion, and he's the next guy we have to talk to. Before we talk to him, why don't we get all your sponsor plugs and thank yous in?
Yeah, absolutely. Big thanks to Team Watson Racing. I couldn't do it without those guys. Without those guys, it's just know-how, and this car, like, I would just be completely lost. I'd probably be like 8 laps down or something. But big thanks to James for just bringing me out and all the support he gives me. Big thanks to Nagisa, actually, a TWR teammate. He raced me clean, and it was real fun. It was probably the most fun I've ever had in this series to date. Have to give a shout out to Brian Labarge, just kind of hanging on to old tires for dear life. Racing me clean as well. I think we were 3 wide at one point, and it's the quality drivers of those guys that we don't like end up in the wall or like hitting each other. Yeah, so big thanks to twrsetups.com for just kind of all the hard work back at the virtual shop.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for coming out, and hopefully we're talking again next week, sir.
Oh yeah, and of course thanks to you for broadcasting. Cannot forget that. You guys put in a lot of work.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your praise, and hope to see you back at Watkins Glen. You're definitely a fast guy on the road courses.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
And last but certainly not least, it's the boss of Team Watson Race Setups, Mr. James Watson himself. You got a TWRS podium finish here. I mean, it's always good when all three of your guys are on the top spot. It feels even better when you are the winner of it all. How does it feel, man?
Feels great. I can't believe I pulled that off. Like, you should have heard me in the voice chat. I was so just sad. Like, cause like my first qualifying lap was faster than anyone's, and then it got loose on me on the exit of 2, and I lost like a second, and I was gutted because I'm like, I had the pole, and now I'm starting in 17th, and after what happened the last time I started in the back, I was super just disappointed, and like this is it's draft heavy, so you can make moves, but you just need a good amount of luck to avoid wrecks and just find holes and openings. And I was able to make up a lot of spots early on. Missed that first wreck. And
Narrowly missed that first wreck.
Narrowly, yeah. And when everyone on that second yellow, when we all pitted, I ended up taking fuel only because I was worried that I was gonna have to make another set of tires last longer than I was comfortable with, and like, even though I had been beating these tires up, like, we had cautions on it, so I took fuel, gained a few more spots, and then was able to pick off a couple more, and was able to put myself in position towards the end, and thankfully nailed my stop. And yeah, I thought for sure Naiji and Victor were gonna win that. I'm like, I'm not gonna catch him, darn it.
I could not believe that those two drivers had to make another pit stop. I wasn't watching the amount of laps they had on their stint, but I saw Naiji dive into the pits. I'm like, holy crap, those guys have 46 laps on their tires. They barely missed out on staying out just a couple more laps on their last stint, and it could have been their race. They were way ahead of you guys, but unfortunately they had the pit, and you guys all just freight trained them.
Yeah, it when I saw the pit, I'm like, oh my god, because like I had a big gap to the rest of them. I'm like, okay, just don't die, and we got it. And yeah, it was a result after how heartbreaking last week was, and the absolute ridiculous competition we have this season. Like, and knock on wood, Old Phoenix being one of my better tracks, like, you have to make your opportunities shine, and this was one of my opportunities. I had to get as much points as I can, and win some lap sleds. Like, it's exactly what I needed. So yeah, this was a huge result, huge comeback result, and yeah, I'm just so thrilled. Thank God I was caught the breaks I needed.
Hell yeah. Well, before we let you go, why don't you give us all of your sponsors, your plugs, thank yous, anything else you want to thank?
Yeah, first off, I want to send a few well wishes. Kenny Coppola, one of our co-owners at TWRS and our next gen builder, his dad is not doing well, and then our rallycross builder, Evan McFarland, lost his father not too long ago. So we're both of them are in our hearts and in our prayers, and hoping things get better. I gotta thank everyone else at Team Watson Racing Setups. Use code WATSPIN39 for 10% off at checkout. Gotta thank you, Graham and everyone else here at NRN for always sticking with us and supporting us. Gotta thank Scott Schroeder and Boomer Button Boxes, Martin Sports Sim Racing Apparel, and Dizzy V Designs and ZS Designs for putting together my paints.
Oh yeah, well, we're going to keep all of our friends and family over at Team Watson Race Setups in our hearts tonight. And before we get on air, I just want to thank you for coming out, putting on one hell of a show for us every time you come out onto this racetrack, giving us something to talk about up here in the booth. And hopefully we're seeing you at the top once again at Watkins Glen. Definitely some fast road course ringers out here, especially in your Team Watson Racing camp. I'm not sure I could say you're one of the fastest road course guys, but definitely expecting a very respectable finish out of you next week. So high hopes, and hopefully we're talking to you again, at least on the podium, hopefully on the top spot at Watkins Glen.
Here's hoping, but that Chris Hill guy, man, he's gonna be tough to beat.
Oh yeah, well you have a great night, sir, and we'll catch you next time.
Here's hoping. Peace.
So, fantastic racing here out of the TNT Shock Series, as always. We'll catch you again, same time next week, 9:45 on Tuesday, for Indy Pro 2000 action at Watkins Glen. Hopefully we get the broadcast started on time. I unfortunately had to run out, and Chris had some hockey to do, so a little bit late on the broadcast tonight, so I do want to apologize for that. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us, though. We will catch you next week. I didn't have time to get the good graphics up, so we're going to give you a screenshot to close the show. Thank you very much, everyone.